Taylor Van Winkle is the Kalamazoo County Sustainability Coordinator. And she hasn't been on the job for that long, so she's still in the process of setting up the advisory committees and all of that. But we thought we would get a progress report that we could record, put out, and let people start following what is happening. Also, prepare questions if you have questions for her at the end. All right. Taylor, it's time for you to take off, and I don't.
All right.
Sorry about the
Okay,
interruption.
so I have a few slides prepared just to help us as touch base throughout the. It's a lot of information I just want to throw at you, so I have some slides prepared so we can follow along. But what I'm going to talk about is just my position, a little overview about myself, what we're doing at the county and with KC3 right now, and what we're looking forward to doing soon. So I'm going to share my screen. I believe I have the ability to do so. So a little bit about myself. I'm Taylor Van Winkle. I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas. So I'm a little bit from not far away, about 1,000 miles, but I came to Kalamazoo originally for my undergraduate degree at Kalamazoo College. So coming back here to work has been actually quite nice. I loved Kalamazoo when I lived here a while back, and I still love it. I think it's a wonderful place. I love Michigan in general. Actually, I don't ever intend to really move too far away from Michigan, but so then I left for a little while and came back, did my master's in urban and regional planning with an emphasis in climate resiliency. And then I worked as an associate planner in East Lansing for a while. And now I'm working as a climate sustainability coordinator, as Nikki mentioned, for the county and KC3. So what is a climate sustainability coordinator? What is it doing? What's my position? So this position specifically was funded with a 3-year grant from the EPA through Eagle, and it was jointly secured by KC3 and Kalamazoo County. And so then my position, my office, is housed in the county itself, and I work closely with a lot of staff members at the county, but I also work really closely with a lot of KC3 members and their committees, and we coordinate together. So it's really a public organization, nonprofit organization collaboration, and it's ongoing, right? So the position, the first half of the grant is dedicated to facilitating the creation of a climate action and climate justice plan, and as well as stewarding it through that county process for adoption, right? So formally getting it through that process, working through with county commissioners and things like that. And the second half of the grant, the latter half is dedicated towards beginning implementation on specifically for community projects, but it's not. If we could get more, we could get more, but that's that's the goal right now. So launching at least 4 projects that are identified in the plan as shovel ready, as urgent, with funding identified, and getting those balls rolling. So that's what the second half of the grant is oriented towards, laying that groundwork. So why is it important to have a county level climate sustainability coordinator as opposed to having all of the municipalities with coordinating positions? Some of you might know that in 2022, the city of Kalamazoo passed their climate sustainability plan. I think it's called the Community Sustainability Plan, which is quite comprehensive and a wonderful example of urban planning at the local level, but it's confined to their boundaries, right? So it's primarily oriented towards projects that are limited within the city proper. So at the county, it allows for that kind of intermunicipal coordination. So there's 24 municipalities across the county, and so communicating and networking and working on collaboration at that level, at the county level, allows for that to happen. And then having at the county level allows for coordination on infrastructure that crosses municipal boundaries, allows for facilitation and support across those boundaries. And some good examples are that when EV infrastructure starts going in, or nature conservation efforts often pass municipal boundaries. And so coordinating, collaborating on a larger scale allows for that to happen. And then another good reason to have it at the county level is that it lessens the fiscal burden on municipalities that otherwise wouldn't have the time or the money to fill and fund a position, a full-time position. So many of municipalities are very small, right? They're no more than 3,000 individuals who live in a village or a township, sometimes even smaller. Several of them, a little bit larger. With the largest being, of course, Kalamazoo and Portage. Kalamazoo does have a designated sustainability planner to implement that plan, and we're in coordination with them and working closely with them on this effort as well. But a lot of the municipalities might not have either a plan in place or the funding to fill the need, right? So having it at the county level allows for that support and that position to be utilized across the county and not just limited to one municipality's borders. And then it also allows for larger scales to be considered. So economies of scale, or getting organizing across larger pools to secure grants, right? A lot of the times the grants at the federal level are looking for the biggest impact for the amount of money you're funding. So having more people in that population, if it was just Kalamazoo, it would be limited to about, I think, 72,000 individuals, but there's 262,000 individuals who live in the county. So there's quite a few more, right? So having those numbers could help us. It might be advantageous to securing funding, right? And then there's regional coordination, right? So in the same way that a lot of climate action work crosses municipal boundaries at the local level, they also cross county boundaries often, right? The Calhaven Trail is a really good example of crossing county boundaries or working with a regional level. So lots of things like that. So how are we going to do this? First and foremost, we're going to do research and best practices, right? So we're looking at what other places have done, what other communities have been have found successful, have found challenges with, and putting together strategies. We're working with community input, right? So getting as many voices as possible to tell us what they find urgent and necessary, and really needed in their communities and at their neighborhood level and their local areas and their lives day to day, right? What they really need. We're also working with municipal collaborating. So we are touching base with townships and villages and cities and working with their staff. A lot of the smaller municipalities don't have designated staff members. They often have consultants. So working and collaborating with that could be a challenge moving forward, but they have a lot of dedicated elected officials as well who are committed to furthering participation and collaborating in that effort. So it'd be great. Is my face messed? I was like, those images just like, okay, I didn't know if it was in the way. Okay. And then the last component is the advisory council, right? So my position's overseen by advisory council. It's going to be composed of 15 members. And those members are intentionally diverse perspectives. So stakeholders, business leaders, community leaders, municipal staff, representatives. So all of them are mandated to be represented within the advisory council. And we had that those positions posted and available back in September. And we just recently, the end of October, I think actually early this week, we sent out the acceptance letters for them. So we'll begin with those first meetings in the coming weeks. So we're looking forward to that. And that'll be really great oversight and give us some good guidance on the plan formation itself. So that'll be good. So something that we've already actually begun with is the community input. So this is a QR code for the climate action survey for Kalamazoo County. You can scan it on your computers right now. You should be able to, but I'll also give Nikki the information. I don't know if you send out PowerPoints afterwards, Nikki. I don't know if what your usual process is, but if somebody's interested, I can send it to them. And so we're asking everybody in the county, all of the residents, anybody who lives, works, studies in the county, to take the survey so that we can hear what they find urgent, what they really want to see happen with the climate action plan, and we can take those steps and help use that information to guide us in the creation of the plan. So with me and the advisory council, informing that plan in the coming months. So here's some good definitions that I'm kind of utilizing right now to help guide the formation of the plan. So getting into more of the like nitty gritty of what's guiding the plan right now. So it's a climate action plan, right? So those are just generally efforts that are dedicated to combating the impacts of climate change. So it can be a lot of different things. There's climate mitigation, which is specifically oriented efforts towards reducing greenhouse gases and lessening future impacts. So it's kind of more prevention oriented, right? And then climate adaptation is actions taken to prepare for and adjust for those projected impacts, as opposed to just we're trying to lessen their impacts. Climate adaptation is saying, okay, it's going to happen. How can we adapt future systems to accommodate those changes? And then climate resiliency are actions taken to anticipate and bolster systems, primarily infrastructure, to the predicted impacts of climate change. And then they're particularly, resiliency is particularly oriented towards bolstering systems to withstand and recover from impacts. So natural phenomena, weather patterns changing, making sure that systems can recover quickly and withstand the predicted changes. So that's where there's a lot of them are often used interchangeably. A lot of them can be used, when you're referring broadly to a lot of different things. Those are often spoken about together, but they do have some nuances distinguishing them. So it's important while we're creating the plan to know exactly what we're trying to achieve and what we're doing. And that's me having those definitions helps me keep those things clear as we're moving forward. And then the other component that's really important is a climate action and climate justice plan. So another definition that's really important throughout my work that I'm always keeping in front of me is climate justice, which is ensuring representation, inclusion, and protection of rights of those most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. So keeping that throughout the process, front and foremost, is essential with this work as well. So the plan itself, what are those focus areas that are identified, and what are we orienting our efforts towards strategizing for? The first is housing and the built environment. So that's really important. So the built environment would be, your cities, your buildings, your infrastructure. That is primarily urban oriented, but there's lots of rural infrastructure as well, right? That could be impacted. And housing isn't just urban oriented, right? There's housing in the rural areas, and there's ways to attain sustainable housing in both urban and rural areas. So it's across the board. And then there's infrastructure, which includes energy. So that's your water infrastructure, that's your energy infrastructure, that's your roads and transportation infrastructure. So there's a lot of components of that, and it's a broad category. But looking at those and making sure we have climate action integrated for infrastructure is important. The natural environment is another one that's identified in the formation of my position for the grant itself. Natural environment, conservation, preservation efforts. And then food systems and agriculture is also identified. And I think that it's particularly key because my position is at the county level, so it allows integration of urban and rural features, right? So integrating agriculture at the county level is unique. I've been working closely with the sustainability planner in Kalamazoo. And agriculture is actually one of the things that our positions are considering very differently, right? In a lot of these realms, we are talking about similar strategies. But for agriculture, because the position at the county is broader and includes more rural individuals who are farmers and who have large tracts of land, there's different approaches to managing and strategies and implementing sustainability at those levels. So that's something that I've noticed with him, with working with urban planners and sustainability locally, or those differences, what we're thinking about, what we're considering, and what kind of challenges we anticipate, for sure. So what are we doing right now? Right now we're in progress with the climate risk assessment, which is going to tell us about Kalamazoo County, the climate risks that are anticipated and predicted at the county level in the coming years. So there's predictions for 50 years out at the half century, about 50 years out, and then also at the turn of the next century is often where those benchmarks are. And I always think that 2050 is so far away, but it actually is a lot closer than we'd think. And When working with climate assessment, risk assessments, and predictions of future climate change impacts in the region, there are often considerations for no change, no impact, no changes to greenhouse emissions, right? So worst case scenarios, and then also best case scenarios where we're implementing, we're making those changes, we're giving ourselves some more time, right? It's common consensus now that we likely won't avoid all changes right. There's no rolling back or putting any cats back in the bag for some of those things, but lessening impact and giving ourselves more time to come up with solution strategies and implementation of technology that might not even exist yet is where a lot of climate action work is being focused right now, right? So implementation and extending our ability, or that time frame for us to implement those things, is where a lot of climate scientists are focusing on now, and climate strategists. The second half of that is the climate justice assessment. So looking at the overburdened areas in Kalamazoo, connecting that with historical context, right? Contextualizing it and looking at where there are vulnerable communities who have faced poor air quality historically and continue today, right? Who have faced pollution, who face right, where are those impacts concentrated, and where were they historically concentrated, if there's been work done to mitigate those, and if those issues remain today. So so that's part of that. We're doing a greenhouse gas baseline assessment, right? So inventorying both internally at the county's buildings, and externally, so looking across the county at general numbers across commercial, industry, and residential numbers of greenhouse emissions. It makes it a bit easier. Most of the energy supplied in the county is supplied by, most of the electricity and the gas is supplied by consumers, and so working, coordinating with them has been very helpful in progressing that. So they've been very cooperative and very helpful with us in this effort. And then we're currently, as I said, we're working with municipalities, asking them, touching base with them, what are you guys already doing? What do you guys want to see happen? What would y'all like in an ideal world to happen in your communities? What do you see barreling down? What do you see most urgent? And working with them on those efforts as well to integrate their needs and align those goals, right, at all the levels. So at the county level, we can offer a lot of support, and so knowing what they need and locating ourselves in a way, positioning ourselves in a way that they are able to access that support after the plan's been implemented is essential. And then, as I said, the advisory council meetings to offer oversight and guidance are underway. That's in progress as we speak. We're beginning that right now. So this is, again, the survey. I just wanted to leave this up in case anybody wanted to scan it on their phones. And this is my information, my phone and email. I am available to be contacted. And so that's what we have right now. And I left some time for questions, so I would love to answer anybody's questions. Oh, let me leave that up so in case anybody wants to scan it. Okay.
Taylor, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, it's Chris Kaiser. You covered a lot of ground. It's amazing. But particularly, I was interested in the climate justice issue. The way you explained it, it sounded to me that would be there even if there were no actual climate change. That some areas have more pollution than others, even aside from global temperatures and drought and things like that. Is that right, or is it something that's particularly impacted by climate change?
So in climate justice is is specifically looking at how climate change is going to disproportionately impact
Okay.
vulnerable communities. So the climate change portion, right? We'll get that information from the climate assessment. What's that climate change going to look like? But the second half of that is vulnerable communities, right? And so defining vulnerable communities, identifying them in the local community, and what that historical context is important, right? So it's a combination of both of those, and the key part is looking at a lot of the historical environmental pollution that they often face, which will be exacerbated by climate change impacts, right? And unchanged behaviors over time, right? They'll progress and worsen if unaddressed, right? So a lot of that is kind of a combination of both the existing pollution and issues that they face, acknowledging that, and then looking at how climate change, if unaddressed, is going to impact those communities even more than everyone else, right? So climate change is going to affect everybody, but climate justice really allows us to make sure that those resources and strategies are being inclusive in their distribution and their awareness and their strategies, right? So.
Good. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Anne, I see your hand up.
I'm wondering about your relationship with the Kalamazoo County Road Commission
Oh, okay.
and the huge number of roads and roadsides where trees could be planted, and also on educating them about mitigating some of the climate issues that have to do with road repair, road salt, planting trees.
Yes, that's a very good question, and it is a significant portion, right, of what the county can do and can offer, right, the transportation component. I personally, in my position, have reached out and spoken with and worked with the planning staff at the road commission. I've met with the commissioners. I've introduced myself and my work and what we can collaborate on, and so we've begun the beginnings of that relationship. And the planning staff over there, oh my gosh, I know her name's Joanna, but I forget her last name. I'm so sorry. She's the lead staff liaison for the road commission. And they have been doing a lot of, and I've been meeting with her, and I intend to meet with her more in depth as the process goes on, but about specific strategies, that collaboration opportunities, right? And you're right. The county commission has been doing a lot of work with sustainability in terms of recycling materials. That's primarily been their focus so far. In when I look at them and I ask them, hey, what stuff have you already been doing? What stuff do you intend to do, and what stuff could you easily integrate, right? When I have those conversations with them, what they've talked to me about is that they've been doing a lot of integrating recycling materials into their actual materials that they're using to repave roads. And what they found with that, side note, I can get into a little bit more detail, but it's actually kind of interesting. They've been using like recycled tires in their several of their roads that they've repaved recently, and they found that it reduces noise pollution as well. So it's not as loud, which was a really interesting side effect that they hadn't anticipated. So they anticipated it being more cost effective because it's recycled materials, as well as it offered some longevity and recycling opportunities. But something they didn't anticipate was noise pollution. That's a side effect, or a side note. We don't have to get into that much detail, but yes, we intend to keep working with them. They're open to talking with us about what they are already doing. I think that the road commission takes their duty very seriously, in that they are oriented towards working with and preserving roads, right? So they want to make sure that they are usable. They want to make sure that they're quality, right? And a lot of that, like you said, is preserving the area around the roads too. a lot of the municipalities in the rural areas are prioritizing preserving rural character and scenic roads. So I think that that's a really good opportunity to dovetail with the commission's work on and municipalities' efforts to say, hey, you guys want to preserve roadside scenery, and the county also wants to work on that too. So let's collaborate. So I see a lot of opportunities to work together.
Thank you.
Ellen, you were next.
A long-winded answer. I'm sorry about that.
Ellen?
Taylor, I'm just so delighted that you're here, and everything that you described seems so smart and thoughtful and comprehensive. And oh my gosh, you've got a lot on your plate, and you seem to be just marching into it with terrific good sense. So that's just so exciting. I wanted to just mention a couple of things, and you don't have to respond to them, but just to put it in the air, kind of. This smoke that we had this last summer from the Canadian wildfires was a little frightening, and it had some serious health effects for a lot of people. And also, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we don't see very soon, even this next summer or whatever, some extreme heat that could also have some serious health effects, right away. And so, trying to think about how to shelter and protect people from some of the immediate dangers that are coming our way is something that's on my mind. I also think about, I've talked to quite a few people who've moved to Kalamazoo already because of the climate crisis for one reason or another. I was at a high school talking to kids about it, and one young woman said, well, my family just moved here from Florida. Our house has been flooded twice. I've talked to people that have come here from Houston. Of course, I've talked to refugees that have come from Central America and Syria, all of where there's climate impact. So this question of what we're going to do about refugees and migrants that may be coming here is on my mind. And lastly, this is too many things. I don't want really, you don't have to answer all these, just pick one. But the other thing is climate education, which is really all of our jobs, but trying to figure out how do we educate our citizens here in Kalamazoo County, and how do we also collaborate with the school here?
Yeah, those are all very important things. Yeah, the smoke from and the pollution last summer, I think, was a big eye opener for a lot of people about climate change and how it can directly impact people's lives. Right? We had overcast, cloudy, smoky skies for a week, right? And that had a huge impact. And I think that will help underscore the need and urgency for the strategies to be implemented as soon as possible, right? So I think that taking that into consideration as part of the climate risks that we face, that Kalamazoo will face uniquely, is key. But then also underscoring the urgency. Hey, it airs for everyone, right? So you can't limit it, you can't stop it. It's gonna affect you too, and just underscoring that it's a little bit of an equalizer, because you can't stop it, right? In terms of air, movement and things. So working together is the only way to combat that. So I think that's important for sure. And in terms of climate migrancy, that is something that the Great Lakes in general will be facing as a unique challenge with climate change. The Great Lakes region, so Michigan and the New England area to a certain extent, but then also Minnesota and Wisconsin are also facing increased migration into their areas because of climate change. And people, the unique thing to think about with climate migrancy is that it's not only international refugees, right? They're also domestic refugees, right? People from Florida, people from South Carolina on the coast, right? People, and it's important to note that when that process happens, you're going to see stages, right? You're going to see the beginning movements, the people who have the means, who are moving from the coast and say, I'm done with my house, flooding. It's already flooded twice. I'm not going through that process again. I've already, I used to only have one hurricane every 10 years, and now it's every other year. I can't handle this. Those are people who have the funding to pick up, find a new place to live and work, and they're gonna move into areas, and they're gonna purchase housing, and they're going to participate in the local economy, right? So there might be ramifications down the line of that accumulating and impacting local systems like housing supply and things like that. And so making sure that we're anticipating those long-term impacts and pressures is vital. But also, the first wave will be people of means, but then the second wave will be, or the further down, right, will be individuals who are refugees of natural phenomenon directly, right? So you got your large scale disaster that are relocated, and that infrastructure will also be needing to be considered, right, and built for, right? That's part of that resiliency aspect, of being able to recover and accommodate those individuals, right? And in combination with some projected population trends right now. So Michigan as a population, as a state, has had stagnating population growth, right? So we have not been following national trends for population growth. We fall about 0.5% under the national trend, and we are anticipated to continue falling under it, and pretty much plateau population-wise. So in terms of advantageously, like looking at climate migrancy as an advantage, it's something that we might be able to attract individuals to the area, individuals who can add to the community, expand economic diversity, add and bolster our economies, add and bolster our region in lots of different ways, industry and education and lots of, whatever it is that they specialize in, right? So making Kalamazoo and the region attractive, right, is already attractive, right? But making it even more so welcoming can, I think, have a positive impact long term when thinking larger scale.
I have a follow-up question on that. You talked about Great Lakes region. Are the various states talking to each other yet about the possibility of mass migration and how, as a unit, they can be working together to help people move into the area rather than as separate states, but also as a region?
So, not strictly yet. So climate migrancy is still pretty new on the considerations for climate change impacts. I know of several local individualized municipalities who are considering it. For instance, Duluth, Minnesota, Duluth in Minnesota. They have specifically addressed climate migrancy in their climate migrants in their climate action plan that they recently passed, because they have concerns for the infrastructure, and they want to accommodate and allow for growth, population growth in the area that they otherwise might not have seen happening or anticipated because of prior migration trends, right? Prior growth trends in the area. So looking at it from that way, there hasn't been, to my knowledge, large scale considerations for it, right? There's been some conferences who have talked and mentioned it, but there hasn't been any collaboration, I believe, intentionally only talking about that and working with it at a large scale. There are some Great Lakes region organizations that I think would be key for that, that might do something like that in the coming years. But as of right now, it's still pretty new.
Okay. Susan, you're next up.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor, for an excellent presentation. All these wonderful things that you are attempting to do, so important, so much on your plate. And the greenhouse gas inventory is a really critical element for that. with getting quantitative information about all these contributors to our emissions, having quantitative goals, monitoring progress toward the goals so we can celebrate that, and seeing how we're saving money and where the low-hanging fruit is. I also know, though, it can be very challenging to do a comprehensive greenhouse gas inventory, and I'm wondering what you're seeing about the barriers and how you're doing with that so far, and if we can help in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. So you're right. Internally at the county, so looking at just the county facilities, there's more. It's more easily accessible, right? It's information that the county itself can procure and what I can work with. So that's been pretty straightforward to deal with. And looking at the larger county information, I have been in contact with consumers, and I said, and they've shared information with us for me to process and begin processing, which has been great, and really offered a lot of insight into energy usage in the county. But there's also a lot of federal information available, federal processing from like the DOT and the Department of DOE, the Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, who offer a lot of those emission information as well. And actually, I have a little bit of a luckier job than Justin, my counterpart at the city, because a lot of those federal databases only go down to the county level. So a lot of them have information that's extrapolated to the county level, and so Justin has a little bit more of a nuanced job than I do in some instances. And we have talked about our various challenges and how they're different and similar. So I don't exactly know how KC3 could help with the greenhouse gas inventory right now, but right now we're in progress with that. So as challenges come up, I'll definitely be discussing it and work in collaborating with KC3 and people at the county and counterparts outside the county. Well, not outside the county, but I mean like Justin, like the sustainability planner at Kalamazoo. So it's definitely a joint effort. It's not just me doing this, right? It's collaboration, and the advisory council as well has been stocked with experts in climate science and various fields. So we got a lot of heads going in and thinking about these challenges. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, you're next.
Yes, great job, Taylor. I'm excited about the next months and years, getting this work going and done and making it awesome. Always remember too, if you feel stuck in the position, like look to groups like this, look to your advisory group, like, hey, if only I could find $150,000 to pay a consultant to do the best ever county, greenhouse gas inventory. Like there are people here that know people who can maybe find that for us. And in some ways, the grant calls for some contribution from outside in different ways, and leveraging what we already are doing is always possible. So keep that in mind. Don't never be afraid to ask for help if you feel stuck. And then secondly, for a long time on my mind, I guess I've been thinking about local groundwater elevation changes. So why? Because our rainwater, our storm violence and runoff regimes have changed already, and they're changing still. And that blows out old stormwater systems, and it causes erosion where it didn't used to. And that matters in agriculture and urban areas. And those folks who are living at low elevation near groundwater are seeing flooded basements and flooded floodplains more than ever before. So I hope that's on your radar. I hope maybe you will connect with the Drain Commission office if you haven't already. And I hope that you find them helpful, and we could encourage them to be helpful on that issue. So keep that in mind. And then also, I think maybe one last point. There was an organization out of Ann Arbor. The acronym was GLISA, G-L-I-S-A.
Yeah, GLISA.
Okay, I'm glad they're on your radar for data sets. They used to do downscaling to the county level, maybe further, in lots of different ways. So hopefully they have current data for you that may be super valuable.
Yes.
And then finally, I guess emergency management. If you're not already connected to county level emergency management people, processes, and committees, that might be a really valuable place too, especially when we think about violent storms and air quality and things we talked about here. And again, keep up the good work. We're here to help. Ask when you need help from all of us around you, okay?
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I think all of that very, very essential stormwater management. I am working with the drain office. We've been in touch, we've been in collaboration. So I am working with them on that. And I've touched base with emergency management here at the county, but kind of connecting with what Alan had said earlier about sheltering and urgent action. So that will probably be work that is closely collaborated with the existing emergency management teams that we have. That urgent movement, right? Those short-term goals that we're moving towards will be. I'm not building anything. The best solutions that can be implemented the quickest are going to be ones that expand on existing systems, right? That just offer support and change that to policies and practices that already exist. So building off of them and supporting them, bolstering them, and not inventing anything new, right? We'll also do that hopefully, but those will be for long-term goals, right? Those short-term ones, those urgent ones are going to be having to rely on a lot of systems, a lot of people, and a lot of existing programs. So yes, I think that's essential as well. Thank you for bringing those up.
Toby.
Hi, Taylor. I'm very happy to meet you. I missed you at the Hope for Creation meeting, so I'm really grateful you're on Fridays for Future. I just recently learned that My Green Michigan is picking up all the food waste at Bronson Hospital and Bell's Brewery and a couple of other businesses where industrial composting is happening in Lansing. They come every week and pick up the bright green bin. And I got it started here where I live now at Heritage Community, Ridge Creek New Independent Living, and it's a pilot project for the rest of Heritage. Judy Sarkozy is the one that got me started. I only just got it that methane is way worse than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas, and that every time our food waste goes in the landfill, that's oxygen can't get to it, so it's creating methane. And this feels like something very doable that we could make a huge change very quickly. Because it's not just everybody composting in their backyard, which some people can't or won't do, but we could really get My Green Michigan picking up much more widely than they are, with such great examples here of success already. I'd really like to see that happen. I thought methane was 25 times as bad as carbon dioxide, but Steve Bertman told me last night at Hope for Creation, no, it's 80 times as bad as carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. So My Green Michigan accepts bones and meat and paper napkins and paper clamshells and paper cups and paper plates, etc. It's very easy for restaurants and other businesses, and I'd love to see the public schools do it. There's a huge amount of waste there. Just in general, our society is creating a huge amount of food waste, so that seems a doable thing to increase soon. Apparently, the state of Vermont makes composting mandatory.
Yep. So you are absolutely right. Methane is quite significantly more harmful than carbon dioxide, and you're right that it is coming from our landfills when we put organic waste in there, because of the anaerobic processing that it does. And I actually just got back from a conference where that was half the conference, talking about food waste reduction and implementing systems to reduce food waste reduction. So we're sitting at about 45% of our landfills are organic waste, and then we need to meet the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan calls for 45% reduction in food waste over the next till I believe 2030. So I think very, very quickly, and so they're talking about their goals are like diverting 2 million tons every year of food waste. That's their goal. And by they, I mean Eagle, who's the conference I was just talking to them about. They've recently launched a food map, a food waste reduction roadmap that outlines their goals for the coming years, and strategies. So yes, you're right. Yes, part of the strategy is education. Yes, part of it is working with individuals. And a lot of it is, so there's several scales, right? So there's individual education, people getting composting and understanding what that is in their own homes. There's businesses and industrial, right? So expanding those systems and getting businesses on board and working with them. But that, you start to bring in a little bit more infrastructure and system expansion. And then the larger scale of having those facilities and coordinating and creating those. Right now, I don't know if you've heard about Part 15, Part 115, which is the new solid waste and organic material management waste. It's the new law that the state passed that requires that every county has a solid waste and recycling plan. And part of that is composting. So I am working with the person putting together that plan for the county, specifically on introducing composting and food waste reduction goals with them. So working at working on a systemic level, but then also including information and future goals for expanding industrial and individual education levels. So you're right, it's a big task, and there's a lot of people putting their minds on it right now. And I think that where I fit in, where I see myself fitting in is developing strategies that integrate that and working with people who are already in that process, right, to integrate those needs and highlight those efforts that are already existing and expanding on them. So that's where I see a lot of that happening right now.
I was shocked that as a environmentalist, climate action person, I didn't know about My Green Michigan until so recently. So I think there will be a lot of others who would be so happy to find out that that's an option right now before plans are developed and adopted.
Yep. Right now is a key turning point right now, especially with the mandate coming down from the state. So yes.
Okay, Jeff has another question.
I just want to echo,
no?
yeah, just an echo yes to everything Toby said. And over the years, I've been involved several different times in people that just were wishing, hoping, trying to figure out how to get more composting options closer to where we are for various reasons. And I would continue those conversations as well. And also, I love what the city did in their planning with the idea of circular economy. And I think it really applies on food waste and compostable products, that we can make soil amendments, healthy soil amendments, and use them locally, and that helps complete the loop of a circular economy. Thank you.
Yes.
Tim?
First of all, Toby, can you spell the name? I don't understand what you're saying. My Green, it sounds like My Green, Michigan.
Yes, My Green Michigan is the name of the company. I think you can just Google that, Tim.
Okay, great.
They have great graphics to show businesses.
Okay, and back to Taylor, I'm very interested in your advisory committee. Will the members be publicly announced, and will be the meetings that they hold with you be open to the public?
Yeah, so the members' names will be posted once they've all accepted, and we've done the process of onboarding them and everything. They'll be posted publicly, and then all of the meetings that are of the whole committee will be publicly accessible. So they'll be held at the county, and they'll be available to be accessed by the public. The subcommittee meetings won't be necessarily publicly accessible, and that's so that you can facilitate like virtual meetings at a smaller scale for more targeted discussions, but still having information shared back with the whole committee when those meet will happen. So there'll be still records of what was discussed and progress made and things like that. So yes to public meetings, and yes to publicly announcing them.
Okay, I have a couple of follow-up questions here. I was happy about Toby's question because it sort of ties in with mine that I had about the composting law, the recycle and composting law that was passed. I'm glad to hear that they are actually working on that. Because I think we need composting, but on the other side of composting, if we have composting centers, can we also pick up the composted dirt so that people can use the soil that's created from the composting in their gardens and in whatever it is that they would like to have fresh soil and healthy soil. So that was, that's part of, can you see if that can be made into the plan that you can use the back end material? And
Yeah,
then
that's
also,
oh yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, this was a different question, so finish.
Okay. That's kind of what Jeff was getting at with the circular economy, with having that that material being reintroduced in a new fashion or a new format. And so that kind of circular aspect is part of that process. So it is something that will likely be discussed and processed. I don't know. There's lots of different ways for composting systems to be designed. And at the county level with the law, it's really at the early stages of designing those processes. I don't even think that the formal committee has met yet. I think they're meeting at the end of the year or maybe at the beginning of next year to begin those discussions. So right now is really at the early stages of what those will look like and in terms of design. But yeah, I think that that's something that will likely be discussed and be vital. Yeah, so I think that is a great idea.
Okay, and then the other thing is we were talking about sheltering in place in time of emergency. We need transportation for that also. A lot of people would not be able to get to the shelters. And so we have to have some sort of way of communicating and being able to transport people to the shelters. So that just has to be part of any kind of planning. It's not that we have a shelter, we have to be able to get there. Okay. And then Anne has another question.
Oh, Anne, okay.
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
I lived in Vermont for almost a decade and was there when I was in Brattleboro, and so I was there when the city of Brattleboro started. First, it was volunteer compost of wet organic materials. And then it was so successful, they made it mandatory. But you have to remember that in Vermont, it's very costly for them to get rid of any of their garbage or recycling or whatever, because they have to take it out of the state. They don't have enough, flat land to have the huge garbage piles that you see here in Michigan. But what they did discover is that, so when the city of Brattleboro finally had garbage composting, each person was given a green bin where the garbage was put in, and that is picked up weekly. It meant that there was so little dry trash that they only needed to pick it up every other week. So the amount of wet garbage was about 2/3 of what was generally goes into the trash. So I just, it's extremely successful. People were cooperating. I don't know why Kalamazoo can't do it. I don't know why Kalamazoo can't ban plastic bags, get rid of styrofoam containers that are from takeout. All of that is being done in Vermont. So it's a good lead, an example for other states to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I was writing down Brattleboro.
Brattleboro, yes.
Okay.
Brattleboro.
All right. I wrote them down to look at their processes.
It's statewide now.
Yeah.
And the farmers, so they have farmers contract with farmers who compost the material, and then you can go and buy that material locally. There's a garbage trash location in Brattleboro, and you just go there and buy your however many feet you want of this compost for your garden.
Yeah, that's what we did
I
in
think-
Connecticut,
yeah,
in
that's-
Colorado too.
Yeah, what Nikki was saying. So definitely looking at other places, what the things that they found successful, the things that they found challenges with, and hopefully integrating those systems. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So Taylor, thank you very much. There are a lot of questions, which means that this was a very timely topic. I'm hoping that we will be hearing from you at least on an annual basis, if not more, when there's stuff to be reported back. And Toby, thank you. My green really was something of interest. So if there are no other questions, it is 1 o'clock. I thank everybody for being here.
All right. Thank you for having me. And it was a wonderful discussion. I really appreciate all of your comments.
Thank you.